um, to date, and with the I have to forgive me. I'm a little bit not as prepared as I would have liked because I had a small little horse emergency out here that I had to take care of some of our critters out here in Wyoming. So I'm a little bit behind the eight ball this morning or this afternoon. But yeah, no, we're really looking forward to going over the program and stuff. And I'd like to be able to cover what you guys want to cover. That's probably going to be the most important thing. I mean, if you've watched our YouTube series in the past or YouTube videos in the past, you'll see we've had a number of different user group meetings where we've gone through the entire program, and I'm more than willing to do that again. So new folks could get an introduction to the program. But I'd also like to hear questions and comments and such, and have you guys help drive the meeting forward from here. But before we do that, let me introduce Brady Groves. We already talked about him a little bit, and Brady, can you go over kind of what you're doing with all of the race series and the and our sponsorships, and introduce Stephen as well?
Sure. You guys got me?
Yeah.
Perfect. Steve, if you want to start, are you there, Stephen?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah, if you want to start with what we've been doing with you guys, I know you kind of announced that stuff this week, but if you just want to quickly go over what we've worked out for the Sox Out series.
Well, just very excited to have iAnalyze Racing on board for another year of Sox Out Racing. It was great having him last year for Neo Trans Am. That was our first full broadcast series, so it was good having him along for the ride. And we've got a number of things that worked with Brady over the break to bring toward the new season, and we got bigger prizes this year. We've got a NASCAR peak antifreeze driver that you can ask for feedback and questions as far as how to use the software. So a number of things that are in play this year that are very exciting, has us excited. I know Doug and Brady have been excited about the start of this series. It is our top tier series, so we're seeing some real big talent. We've got a couple of guys from Jim Sim Racing Team registered this year, so that's kind of cool.
Well, and when does that get started, Steven?
Well, we've got the recruitment round for the series starting this coming weekend, and then the first race of the series is the 26th and 27th. For those not familiar with our league, we run a race weekend style of event. So Saturday you get a 6-hour practice. You're out there on the track with everybody else and with actually the entire iRacing community that wants to hop in and run laps. Get your track time, and then Sunday you get 20 minutes to adjust to the weather changes for the day, the track conditions, and 10 minutes to get your best qualifying lap, 2 laps. And then you're rocking and rolling. So with the race.
Yeah, so we're really excited about the stuff we've got with Steven. I won't take you guys too long. I know nobody.
Oh no.
We are here to talk about the software. So
real quick, Brady, Steven, could you go over what the prizes are, just so guys know in case they want to join your series?
Yeah. Give me 1 second. I was getting to that. I was trying to pull it up here. You cut me off guard here, Doug.
Yes. My plan is working.
Moment in this, so.
And there's a question in the chat there. Do you want to quickly go over what type of cars run in the Series 2, Steve?
Yes. Our V8 Super Truck series uses the NASCAR Camping World trucks, so the Silverado and the Tundra. There it is.
What's the name of the series?
V8 Super Trucks Championship, the iAnalyze Racing V8 Super Trucks Championship. We'll have we'll have a forum post in iRacing forums this week. So we just got finished wrapping up AMSC, which is our Pro Am series, which runs the super late model chassis. So we've got 3 drivers that qualified to run in the V8 Super Trucks season opener. So that's going to be exciting to see those guys. So championship prizes this year we put together. We've got a combination of iRacing gift cards and iAnalyze Racing subscriptions going out to the top drivers and top teams. we have the top 10 drivers are getting payouts this year. So first is a $150 iRacing gift card and 1 year subscription of iAnalyze Racing. Second place in the Drivers' Championship is $125 and a year of iAnalyze Racing. Third place is $75. Fourth place is $50. Fifth place is $25. And 6th through 10th is a $5 iRacing gift card. And everybody who finishes in the top 10 gets that 1 year of iAnalyze Racing. Your teams championships going to be 60, 40, and 20 for the top 3 teams respectively. So that those prizes would be split between the team members there. And then in addition to that, we'll also have our the iAnalyze Racing Hard Charger Award, which gives 1 month of iAnalyze Racing awarded to one driver from each round of the season. And finalists are determined for that award based on the greatest positive change in position, the most impressive drive to maintain a consistent position, and feedback from our executive team, RaceBot TV, and iAnalyze Racing. And the series is broadcast on RaceBot TV as well. I see Christian's in here answering questions, so thanks, Christian. So, and then on top of that, we do have our own licensing system for those who might be interested. We have, so to come into SOR with a pro license, you need at least a 4,000 I rating, either road or oval. And to be able to compete in this series, you need a minimum of a over 2,500 I rating.
Yeah, and if those guys want to check out more about that series, Christian just dropped the link in the chat. It's soxoutracing.com. It was a great series last year, and we put a lot of work into it this off season, and I think it's going to be even better. So I'm really excited about that. And just on behalf of Doug and myself, I wanted to thank Stephen because he's worked so hard this year. Even over the Christmas season, we were in contact almost every other day. So he's been working really hard. So thank you to Stephen.
He puts on the most professional series that I have seen done. Not that I've seen many, but I tell you, he does an awesome job. So if you guys can qualify for it, boy, I'd really recommend you give it a go for some good for really high level competition and a professionally run series. Stephen, you just do an awesome job.
Yeah,
thank you, Doug.
So quickly, I'll run through some other stuff before we get into the actual software. We ran a promotion with One Up Motorsports. We worked with Derek Boudreau, Marcus Richardson, Christian, and I'm going to pronounce your last name wrong, so I'm just going to call you Christian, who's in the chat, and Robbie Vrabel. We worked with all those guys along with One Up Motorsports to help guide them through the iRacing Pro Series, where the top 10 points earn a NASCAR Peak Antifreeze license. Our goal was to work together with iAnalyze to get those guys into the peak season for 2017, and we actually got 3 of them. Derek, Marcus, and Christian are all going to be competing full time in the Peak Antifreeze season, which was way more than I expected. I'm so proud of those guys. Derek actually finished 2nd. Christian was 9th. Marcus was 4th. So we're going to be sponsoring those 3 guys full time in the Peak Antifreeze season. So I think they start running in April, the start of April. So you guys can check those guys out in that series. I'm super excited about that. Last season we worked with Tyler Hudson, who's taking a step back this year, but I'm super excited to have those 3 guys in it. They got, okay, so 2 weeks they start. So make sure you check those guys out. I'm super excited for those guys. We worked so hard this season, and they worked so hard with iAnalyze and with One Up. They're going to have a great season. A couple other sponsorship things. We'll also be the primary sponsor on one of the Inex cards for the G2 World Championship, so you can check those guys out. I'm still working it out with them who exactly it's going to be and what the whole situation there is, but we will be sponsoring a car in the GT World Series, and you can also check us out on a couple races in the F1 series. I haven't decided the races yet, but we're working closely with Inex as well this season for the road side. So really proud of all those guys and really excited about the season. And the last thing I wanted to talk about, and this is really early stages, but I'm super excited about it, and I know Doug is really excited about it too. We're going to be we're planning to run kind of like an IROC series. I don't know how many of you remember the IROC series, but the plan is to have a season long with the best of the best from the road side and the oval side, the best sim racers, bring them together in a 4 or 5 race slate across the entire season and kind of see who stacks up. It's going to be road races, hopefully dirt races, but I think we might be a little too ambitious there. Road races, oval races. So we're going to put on that a really high stakes series with only the best iRacers in the world, and we'll see you oval versus road who stacks up the best. So I'm really excited about that. We've been working with Steven on that. A long way to go, but it is going to happen this year, and I can't wait to broadcast that for you guys. That's all I got.
Wow, that's enough, huh, guys? I think that's something that's really important. One of the things that we like, that I like to do, and I know Brady likes to do as well, is having iAnalyze giving back to the community and making sure we support you guys. That's really an important thing for me, because quite frankly, at the end of the day, this iAnalyze and all of that is all about educating racers about data acquisition and giving you good tools to actually make your iRacing experience more enjoyable and more informative to you. And that's really the bottom line goal, and that includes supporting you in the different race series that you might be involved in. And as I mentioned, that Brady's in charge of putting all that together and putting all the sponsorship deals together. So with that, we'll kind of wrap that, one big long 5-minute advertisement, 10-minute advertisements for iAnalyze Racing and all we're trying to do. We'll kind of wrap that up, and we'll go into what we're planning, at least in the near term, some things that folks have asked for. If you're a team member subscriber, if you have a race team, that's purchased through iAnalyze Racing that allows you to share laps and such. One of the things that was asked for was for OneDrive integration. Or Google, whatever their blob storage is, so that you can actually share entire data sessions with among teammates. And so that's one thing we're looking at doing. I know OneDrive has an API that looks like that'll be pretty easy to do. We're going to look at the Google side of it as well. So we could have a number of other different supported things, and this would be available as part of your team subscription. It'll if you're part of a team, it'll allow you to enter your credentials for OneDrive and map everything directly in and manage the uploads of all your sessions and keep things in sync, etc. And in whatever the ways the OneDrive API, and I haven't even looked at the OneDrive API yet. I just know that it's possible. It's what folks have been asking for to be able to share stuff as well. And the more important one, as far as a user feedback tool, is the pit load speed limit monitor. Someone had asked for that, so basically looking for some sort of audio feedback so that when you're above the speed limit, it yells at you and kind of gives you an indication as to how much you're above the speed limit. So you have how quickly you have to react to get back down below, and hopefully this would kick on from before you get into the pit lane all the way through it and finally exit the pit lane. And so those are kind of the two big things that we're working on. My time frame probably for those is about a month and a half or thereabouts. So probably the next major release we're looking at is end of April. And of course, whatever other bugs and other things we fix. And please, guys, don't be bashful. Get in touch with me. If you have something wrong, get me a note. Sometimes it takes me a while to get back to you, and I apologize for that. But when we do, though, we will get things. We do want your input to help get things fixed up. Let's see here. Yeah, guys, if you'd be so kind as to mute yourself, we're getting a little bit of audio feedback here. I could do it. I can just nail everybody, but if you just everybody just mute themselves, that'd be really appreciated. Let's see. So those are kind of the two big things that we're looking at doing in the next month and a half or so. And of course, what do you guys suggest? What would you like to go over and do and see changed or added? Okay, doesn't sound like there's a lot. So okay.
I think one thing is different tires have different optimal tire temperatures, and just kind of the one thing that we hear often, at least in our league, is the question of where's the optimal tire, or where's the optimal temperature for these tires. I don't know if that's something we can get from iRacing to put into the software as far as where's that range, or if that's just completely out of the realm of possibility. I'm not sure.
So basically, a better way to map the tire temperatures to what's optimal, so that green means good, so you're kind of like that's in the target zone, and if you're above it or below it, you get the yellow and red or the blue or whatever the appropriate colors is. So a better way to better color management perhaps is the best way to is something from there. Yeah, I mean, when I threw that tire, I mean, when we got to the tire temperature page, I will tell you, I did not like that page, and I still don't. But you guys love it, or at least a number of you have told me that you love it, and just it really gives you the feedback that you're looking for. Perfect. That's what we need. I just, if you've got better ideas or different ideas, and maybe we can talk about different ways for representing the colors rather than just this color bar that we've got for the tires. This is some older data, so it doesn't have tire temps in it. I just grabbed a session from the Glen, I think. That makes it a little bit easier than just this, maybe making these editable so you can put in temperatures, and also maybe linking it to the car so that once you set these, it's for the car type. And Kyle, yeah, if you have ideas, if you have an idea, if you can do a mock-up, that would be great, because Kyle in the chat here he said he's got an idea for how the page looks, but it's just aesthetic. And yeah, but sometimes the way you communicate the information is the most important thing. I mean, there's all sorts of different ways to present graphs and other stuff.
Hey Doug, are you sharing your screen?
Oh, geez, am I not sharing my screen? Oh, I'm an idiot today, aren't I? Okay. That should be screened or shared.
Yes, sir. It
okay.
Is.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Geez, sorry about that. What kind of chicken shit outfit am I running here? Yeah, so this page here, can make it different if you have ideas. And Christian, give me an idea of more what you're looking for there. Christian has a suggestion here for user adjustable line for things like ride heights and such. Christian?
Sorry. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. What I was meaning was, for example, say that you, in a specific car, have like a right rear ride height of 80 millimeters that you want to see, and sort of target, and you know that that's kind of what you're after. Maybe you could have like a user input to draw a line across on the graph. So you see how, like, on your screen share, like there, how you've pointed at 0.44. Like, what if you could just have that line permanently on there, so that you didn't have to actually use your cursor? You could just look at the whole trace and be able to see if it was tracking that sort of height that you were looking for.
Okay, so what if you did something along the lines of, if you just double-clicked over here in the legend, and it would just put a line of a particular color?
That would be great, yeah.
Yeah, and then if you double-click, say on the whatever box, let's say it throws a box up or something to show you, so it identifies, you can just double-click on that, and that'd make it go away. If you double-click at another spot, it would move it accordingly. Okay, yeah, we can take a look at that. Okay.
Ready for another one, Doug?
Sure.
Dampers. Our team has got to a point where we're getting better, but we just feel that shocks and rebounds and bumps are really important. And I've got an explanation from my teammate who's helping me with iAnalyze, but something to talk about the dampers so you can know what it means with the percentages, what direction you should be going, kind of a tutorial of what it means by the dampers and what direction you should be going and looking for.
Okay, and that's actually a great question. And let me, I don't know if I have any data. I know I've got to have some data around here somewhere that has, where would I have gotten my Roadster stuff maybe? That's too old. Well, you know what we're going to do? Why don't we just, oh, nope. Why don't we just download a couple of laps, and those will probably have all the data as part of them. And just to give you an idea, what I do for a day job is I actually write software for the command and control of test equipment that is used in NASCAR, Formula One, and just about every other race series you can think of, including motorcycles and short track, dirt track. You know, shock dyno software and spring rating software is what I do for a living. Now, that doesn't mean I know anything at all about shock absorbers, because they are the last black box on the race car. I bet you. Well, let's see what we can dig up here. And
I'm on phone, so I can't see anything you're putting up. I'm just on the phone.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, yeah. And well, I guess we can kind of go over some of it, and this will be available. We are recording this, and I'm going to put it up online as well on our YouTube channel. We'll be able to. So if you want to be able to go back and look at that, you'll be able to. Let's just get the lap here. Yeah, one of the fun things I do is I actually run this in the background. Run this in the development environment, so it takes a little longer for some things to happen because I get all this fun information about what's going on. I just my theory is that if I'm running it, I ought to be testing it at the same time. So, or at least that's what my thing is. So if we're going to go to the damper tab. Yay, dampers. Okay. Yeah, let's talk about the damper tab for a little bit. And first off, let me there is a book that if you really want to learn about data acquisition, it's probably, well, there's two books really. One is Data Power by Buddy Fay. I mean, that's the Bible for learning race car engineering and race with regards to being a data acquisition guy. Buddy Fay has been at this for years, from sports cars to NASCAR to whatever. But unfortunately, his book's out of print, and so it's wicked expensive when you can find a copy of it. So the next book that I highly recommend is one by Bob Knox, and it's called A Practical Guide to Race Car Engineering. And that book really has given me a lot of the foundation for some of what you see here. And in fact, this damper page is something that came from him. And he is just right down to the nuts and bolts. These are the equations you want to look at. This is what you want to be able to see and be able to calculate. This is what you want to be able to look at in terms of, you know, plots. The other one perhaps that's interesting is the steering page. Same basic idea, and and how all this is laid out. All of this is all based on his stuff, and certainly the two graphs on the left, which I will go over because I think these are two of the most powerful graphs you will see.
That was my next one, was the steering page. If you could go over kind of the steering page and what it means, where it means it, and things like that. That would
sure.
Be
yeah. Yep.
Really
and yeah. Well, yeah. We'll take a look at that as well. But okay, back to the damper page now. A couple of things to know about dampers is that, and the first thing is that where is your low speed boundary? What is the low speed, and what does that mean? Well, race car, the weight transfer of the race car happens generally at under an inch per second, under an inch and a half per second. There are some guys out there that'll tell you that it's under 2.5 inches or 2 inches per second. And for some cars, and I bet you when we get to the dirt stuff, you're going to see much higher shock velocities than you will on asphalt tracks, because there's a lot of transition that goes on with that. But the low speed boundary, you just pick a particular one that you think is pretty good. An inch per second is pretty good. And basically what's happening there, that's where all the weight transfer is happening. Anything faster than that is road irregularity, you hit a curb, you hit a bump on the racetrack. There used to be this big bump on the back of Charlotte, on the back straight of Charlotte, that was a pretty good example of that you'd hit it and you'd see 2 or 3 inches per second worth of travel. So the first thing to do is to set that. That starts at 1, and that's probably a good starting point, is 1 inch per second. So, and basically what it does is it tries to split your weight transfer numbers from your handling road irregularities or driver input events because you hit a curb or whatever, and it tries to split those out. And to break those up into 2 different things so you can get an idea of what the balance of the car looks like. The other values here that you see here are the minimum bin value that's visible, and you set this, and it basically you have to have, what these histograms do is it takes a whole lap of data and it breaks up the graph into bins that are a certain bin size, some inches per second. So each one of these sectors or sections corresponds to a 1/4 inch of a second, or 1/4 inch per second speed. And so it basically shows how many data points fall into that first bin between 0 and a 1/4 inch per second. And the second bin here shows how many hit between a 1/4 inch and a 1/2 inch, and ad infinitum, all the way out. And it basically says here, at some point you have to stop with the graph, and you can really get way out there. If you set that to 0, sometimes you can get graphs where you'll hit one bump way out in the middle of things, and it distorts the graph, so you can't really see it very well, the distribution that you're looking for here. So we give you a minimum size to say, at least get 0.5% of the data points in that bin, and then we'll show you that particular out to that speed. But once it drops off below that, then that stops. So given that, what this now shows, or what it's supposed to show for all of this, is given this is the distribution of speeds that you see for an entire lap, and it's for the data lap, or your data lap and the reference source. Ooh, which reminds me, does anybody have any comments on what we've done to try to make this a little easier to use in terms of using the driver mode with reports, or the crew chief mode? Anybody have any comments or suggestions on that? I didn't know. I'm trying to find ways to make things simpler, and that was just something that came up. And so if anybody has any comments, I'd sure appreciate hearing them. If you like it, hate it, or what have you.
Well, I like the updated layout with the tabs. It's a lot cleaner and easier to kind of see what you have up than it was in the previous version.
Oh, good. Okay, good. Well, that's better. Let's see what else. Okay, getting back to the shock absorber stuff. So, getting back and looking at this page and trying to figure out how to look at it. Now, everything I'm going to tell you is theory and the way it's supposed to work. And my very next words are going to be, but it doesn't work that way, because the driver input and some of the simulation stuff as well, being a simulation, were the driver feel, the driver input, the track, the car, they all kind of have an effect. And so you get used to a certain look that you have to get used to. In theory, however, what you're looking for is you want these graphs to be a bell curve, and as perfect a bell curve as you possibly can get. And the theory on that is that you want if you've got things going in one direction at one speed, you want it coming back in a controlled direction at a similar speed. That way there's no surprise inputs to the car. There's no transitions, there are no harsh transitions. Say, for example, you load up the car and you allow it to compress very quickly. You can put a moment into the car into the tire that could break it loose for a brief second before it regains traction, and there's just different things that can go on, and the same thing that can happen when it's returning and rebound as well. So the theory is you want
going back real quick.
Sure.
when you say bell curve, are we talking on all four corners of the car you want them bell curves, or should there be a difference between the first and second because in a corner there's more load maybe on the right front or the right rear, or however you drive, and so forth?
Yeah, well, the distribute. I mean, theoretically, the bell curve should be the same. They could have a different distribution in terms of the speeds that they're moving, like so they don't have to be exact. You know, the right front and the left rear don't have to, may not necessarily, depending on the car, may not necessarily be the same speeds. Okay, they may not come back. Like for example, maybe the back of the front of the car only sees, you know, 1 or 2 inches per second, and that's it. Okay, or maybe up to 3 inches per second. But the back has more travel for whatever reason, based, you know, like dirt late model or something. You know, you're going to have a lot more travel there, so you're going to be covering a lot more, having a lot larger velocities as you turn into the corner, and so you'd see that. But what you're looking for is you want that bell curve, and the way you approach it is you start on the tire that is the most important. And for you oval guys, that's going to be the right front. For road course guys, it's going to be debatable depending upon what the most important curve is, leading on to the longest straightaway or the 2 longest straightaways or what have you, whatever finally divining line that you actually use to help tune your car. So, you know, let's just pretend this is an oval. You'd start on the right front, and you would look at you try to get that to be a perfect bell curve, messing with the velocities or in the damping of the shock with the adjustment that you have there. And then once you get that, then the next step is you want to get your the left front, because you want to go across the axle now and get that axle tuned the same. So that, and the idea is that you know, ideally, and I'll kind of correct what I said earlier. Ideally, you don't want the weight transfer stuff, the low speed stuff. You want that essentially to be equal. And as far as your rebound and bump distribution, the closer you get that to equal, the better off you are. And you want the low speed transitions on the front and the rears to be close to the same. The idea is you don't want things damping at different frequencies, because that could lead to some weird consequences in the handling of the race car. So so you start with the most important tire, get a nice bell curve going on that, go over to the left front, get it working across the axle, and then do front to back, and get it the same, and get it looking close to the same, same general shape, on the you know, front to back as well. And once you've done all of that, if you know, what guys have noticed is that they've spent the time and they've gone in and they've made the car exactly what I'm telling them. Then they go, but I'm slower. And you're right, you will be, because every driver has a different feel that they like, and that's where driver preference and understanding what you're doing. So for example, looking at what we have here on the screen on the right front here, maybe having this negative distribution of a little bit faster, just a little greater distribution here, that's the shape of the curve that you need to look for this particular driver, because that's what he prefers, and that's what he feels comfortable in. And I think we've all probably downloaded a setup, drove it, and said, how can anybody drive that thing? It's completely undrivable. You go back to yours and you look at it, it's completely different, but you end up being just as fast, or hopefully you do. And you just go, well, what's the difference between these setups? And it's, well, it really comes down to driver preference. And so that's and the racetrack, and you know, what in terms of you know, temperature and marbles and all that other fun stuff, rubber buildup, that those are all have effects as well.
Well, I mean, that's one thing we see in our series is that the setups are very dependent on driver setup, and I know Christian can echo that observation as well.
Yeah, and guys, yeah, please, Steve, thanks for saying something. Yeah, and please feel free to jump in here, and if you have any other thing that you'd like to add, that we'd really appreciate it. I mean, that's the other thing. This is a user group meeting. This is for you guys, and if you have things you can share that might help make folks faster, I know guys would appreciate it. So please feel free to speak up. Let's see. So that's kind of the damper page in summary, and I've gone over it a couple of other times as well in the other videos or the other user group meetings, and may have done a better job in those. So you may want to take a look at that as well. So that's kind of yes?
Jump in real quick. I know you can't see the chat. I just wanted to run through a couple things that are being said in the chat really quickly.
Awesome. Thank you.
Where do we start? I had this. Kyle says, I'm always in crew chief mode. It does make things easier. Is there any way to have a default for those who always use the same format?
Format for, I guess I'm not tracking.
Kyle, if you can expand on that question a little. Evan Wood says, with respect to the dampers, do you always want to start with the right front?
If you're an oval guy, yes, because that's the most important tire. That tire is where the car's leaning first, right? I mean, you go into a corner, that's where it picks up, that's where the weight transfers to. So that's the first one you want to start with, get that one understood. Yep. Then go across, get the left front understood, and then go back.
Kyle, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep, we got you, bud.
Okay, no, it was in reference to the, sorry for the birds. It was in reference to when you were talking about the different view modes, the crew chief, driver, stuff like that. That's what I was talking to. I've noticed that it defaults to crew chief, but I don't know, I haven't seen if there is a setting that would just default to, like, if somebody doesn't want to look at all the stuff that's in crew chief mode, if they just want to go to driver mode, is there an option to default that? Because, like I said, I haven't seen it. Granted, it's not.
If you change it to driver mode, if you change it to driver mode, it should stay in driver mode. Is it not doing that for you?
I've kind of been having some issues with it. It's been a lot of installation, reinstallation. Like sometimes it won't always catch a session. Sometimes it'll catch a session after like 20, 30 laps into it. I don't know if it's just a pre-release thing. I have to go back and forth between the pre-release and the straight version. It's kind of a little hassle, and it's I don't know if it's entirely on my end. I have been having some hardware issues on my end lately, so I don't know what. I'm still trying to figure out what's affecting what before I say, oh, it's entirely this, this issue here. So
sure, Kyle, let me one. I think you and I ought to spend some time on the phone, either later today or tomorrow or sometime when it's convenient for you. I know I do have one support call I have to make this afternoon after this is over, but let me see what I was going to look for. Yeah, but let me show you one thing that may be helpful for your situation. And guys, this if you're ever having trouble with the data, if you go to your documents folder, you've got your iAnalyze racing folder where just about everything lives. There is this logs folder, and in it lives all these wonderful logs, and you can pop one up and you can actually get all this feedback of what's going on. Kyle, if you notice that the race isn't getting picked up or you're not getting laps, when you get out of the session, exit iAnalyze and go find that log, and then the latest log, and you can see it has it by date in time. So it's when you start the program that it creates the log. And if you could email that to me, that'd be useful because I could get a look at that. If you look in here every now and again, this kind of stuff is kind of normal stuff to see. You see this all the time. I opened some data that didn't have things, and that's okay. But if it's having problems with the connectivity to iRacing and the telemetry is dropping a bunch of data points, it'll actually reject laps. If you miss more than 5% of a lap's data, it will actually drop that lap. It won't count it because it doesn't have enough data to make sure that it's giving you accurate information and the accurate race time and all that other stuff. So it will actually drop it, and you will see that in the log file, you will see that's problems. And my guess is you're probably having some weird network issue that probably is no fault of your own. It's just happening because that's typically what the behavior that you see when that happens. So you have this log stuff in here, and there's other options as well that you can control, but there's no need to get in that right now. But just be aware of this folder. So if you ever have a problem and it's doing really weird stuff, getting me a copy of the log is helpful.
Yeah, I just had that. I had that happen to me too, Doug. I was in a room at Daytona, about 40-something people, and it only picked up like 6 or 7 drivers, and that was it. I'm not sure why that's happening either. Sometimes it'll work, sometimes it won't. I don't know.
Is it because guys? Overall, is everybody experiencing this, or is it just a couple of guys? Or
I've seen it from time to time where it doesn't pick up the session.
Okay. Well, okay.
I was just going to say, I find it's race track dependent. Like at Donington, it works just fine. At Carlo Pace, at Interlagos, all my data, like the driver data with the, it'll show the the line graph, but all of the like split times. And Doug, we've talked about this before, but it continues to be that issue where all the splits are exactly the same, and like the little markers on that are animated on the track itself next to it, they don't move. It's really strange why it would work on some tracks and not another.
Yeah. Now, 1.2.94, which is the current pre-release version, should fix the map not updating. I had to get, for whatever reason, I can't reproduce that problem, but somebody sent me some data. And I think I mentioned who it was on the website. I'm sorry if I don't remember your name. But I was able to reproduce that problem, and I was able to resolve it. So if that hasn't solved it for you, Tom, send me that data from Interlagos that's goofing up, because I'm sure it's a similar issue, and I need to be able to and I need to be able to team that. And Ricky, if you can get me data as well from that particular session, that'd be useful from your session in Daytona, because you had mentioned that as well, so we can get these things fixed.
So
I sent you the log, but I didn't send you the data yet.
Okay. Okay. Good. So yeah. Okay. So all right. Is there any other questions in the chat? Thank you, Brady.
Yeah, I'll just add.
Doug.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. No. I've already asked something. Go ahead. I'll ask after you.
I was just going to say, I'll add to that. If you guys run into problems like that, even however big or however small, just flip us a message. I put our contacts in the chat. You can also message us on Facebook. That's all really useful information to us, because if it's happening to you, it's probably happening to somebody else, and that's we want to get all those bugs out as quick as we can. So anytime you run into any problem like that, please get in contact with one of us, and we'll try to make it right as quickly as we can.
Yeah, and again, I mean, go ahead.
Go ahead, finish that thought. I want to go back to dampers for when you're ready.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, go ahead, ask the question. I was just going to say, that's one of the philosophies here, or at least that being the software developer that I have, is that, this is my baby and my pet project, but it's your guys' tool. I mean, and you guys need this to work for you. So when there are issues, I need to know. So don't be shy. Please contact me and let me know, and make sure that I make this exactly what you need it to be. So anyway, okay, go ahead.
Yep, go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Doug, I was just wondering, when iRacing brings out a new build, I assume that probably it affects the software because of whatever information you're getting from iRacing, and that's where it looks like my issue came, was after the last build, that this issue with the track dependency, where getting data or not. So I don't know if that's if I'm just hunting.
No, it is, and it does, but sometimes it's PC dependent as well. There's some settings or what have you, and you'd be surprised at how much stuff under the hood is, there's little options here or there, little changes you can make, and even some things indirectly affect others. But and I am an alpha tester for a beta tester or whatever you want for iRacing, so I can actually test things, and I do try to and try to catch stuff. Sometimes it just sneaks through, however, because I don't see the particular problem that gets a thing. And then certainly, that big headache that we had the last go round, since we had the, what was that, January or thereabouts, that was a bit of a nightmare. Some of that was my fault in that we've changed significantly how sound is played back. So that we can make things louder, because there were some complaints about not being able to hear the text-to-speech engine talking back at you during a race, which at times is challenging. And I was able to do some work with that to help amplify that, and that change was a pretty significant one. So, yeah, understood. And if again, Tom, I need data. I need more data because I can't reproduce the problems that you were saying. And 94 may fix it. 1.2.94 if you haven't installed it yet, or if you have, get me the data from things, and we'll get to it, because I want to take a look at that, because that's a weird problem. And I know you sent me some data before, I think 1 or 2 laps if I remember, and I wasn't able to reproduce it like it worked on mine. I have no idea why, but we can talk a little bit about offline about that. So, okay, who's up?
Thanks, Tom.
My question about the dampers is, having the bell curve would seem to me to be a best way to confirm what you're seeing in the boxes above and below, the left front, right front, and the percentages. Am I looking at those to even each side out, say with the left front rebound, just as an example, and the bump? Am I trying to get the highs even, the lows even, so that it evens out below? Because I've been told that what you're looking for is to get the differences as close to zero and as close together to match each other as possible, and that'll produce your bell curve.
Right, exactly. Yep, exactly. And you're dead on. Yeah, that difference, if you could get that difference as close to zero as you possibly can, I mean, that's the theoretical perfect way of doing things. Okay, because if that difference is zero, then that means everything. The number of transition points that you have in bump and rebound in the low speed. So it'd be, the rebound would be from 0 to a -1 inch per second. So it'd be from here to here, and then the bump would be from 0 to 1 inch per second. Then you've got that distribution about right, and that's exactly what you're looking for. And the highs will balance out if you do if you get the lows at 0, then the highs will balance out as well, or they should, or should come close. So yeah, no, that's exactly the right way to look at it.
Okay, thank you, Doug.
Okay, oh, no worries. Let's see, I guess the next thing was Kyle, you wanted to go over the steering plot here. This actually shows 2 different things, which is great. This is a perfect little graph to kind of show you what's going on. If you don't have, this relies on the options page. And on the options page, there is a, for the show map turns checkbox. And what this does is that it turns on the colors to define where the different corners are. And these are important because they map to the colors over here on the left side in these graphs here. Now, just quickly going over this page, it has the steering wheel, the driver inputs, the track map, and it also has over here on the left a report, the segment comparison report. I find this very useful. It helps you zero in on where you're faster or where you're slower. Just right off the top of the bat, you can take a look at, well, all right, in turn 5, oh, it's this little pinkish color here. It'll compare the data lap versus the reference lap and shows you what's faster. Green, of course, is good, meaning the data lap is faster than the reference lap, which is the way it works throughout the program. If on the time comparisons, if it's green, that means the data lap is faster. And it also shows you the speed at the entry and the speed at the exit and the average speed through the segment, so that you can actually get an idea of where you're picking up speed, losing speed, or what have you. And you know, I'm one of those guys that goes into the corner to the very last second, brakes as hard as he possibly can, and then turns, which if you get it right is awesome, but more often than not I get it wrong. And you know, that's kind of one of the things that it helps me to show is like, no, take it a little easier there, back off, don't be charging in there like a frustrated bull. You don't want to be doing that, and it keeps you a little bit I don't know, focused on what you're doing there. So, but what the most important graph on this page in my mind is not the center graph, although that information is useful and it's really kind of neat to be able to go in and drill into to compare different things. You know, it's kind of nice to be able to do it. It doesn't necessarily give you the full detail that these graphs on the left-hand side do. And what these graphs on the left-hand side plot are the lateral acceleration on the, oh, Gerard, stop doing that. Lateral acceleration on the left side and steering on the x-axis. And in the iRacing world, for whatever reason, turning right is positive degrees. And I'm thinking about adding a switch so that this makes so you can change that, because it makes more sense to me that turning left ought to be negative, and zero, if zero is straight ahead, left is negative, right it should be positive. It just makes sense to me that way. But it's a little bit, but it's backwards in the iRacing world right now. And so when you go positive degrees, you're actually turning right. And what this graph shows, and if you think about going into a corner, you're going into a corner, you turn the wheel a little bit, you make a little lateral G. Turn the wheel a little bit more, you make a little bit more lateral G. A little more lateral G, and you keep doing that to eventually you get to a point where you turn the wheel, but you're now past the grip of the tires, and you're not going to be generating any more lateral G, and you'll be pushing. And if you do that, if you are pushing, that'll show up in the steering if you're steering too much. And as you notice on the top one in the data lap here, how it flattens out. And so when I'm turning left here, or when the driver is turning left here, he gets to about 25 degrees, 30 degrees, and he could pretty much stop steering, and he's not going to turn any harder if he continues steering. But he continues to turn the wheel, and you can kind of see that it's the lateral G that he generates flattens out, and indicating that he's inducing some push. And if you go down to the bottom of this curve, you can kind of see that you've got the same thing happening in right-hand corners, because negative is turning to the right. You can see the same things happening in individual right-hand corners, and you can look at the individual areas and the different corners just by their color. You can take a look, and if you highlight it, you can actually see this will zoom in, and it'll show you the exact corner that you're actually seeing from the driver's point of view of what's happening in that corner. And you're oversteering just a little bit. You can see how he continues to turn in. The G is kind of levels off here, while the steering input is still continuing to increase. So compared that to the reference lap, for example, not getting any push to the right whatsoever. It's actually looking pretty good. But to the left, but to the right, there's a whole bunch of push, particularly in the what I guess they call it the outer loop now, which is the big right-hand corner at the Glen. And into the 90, which is at the end of the front, straight at Watkins Glen. And so that's kind of what this page shows you. And by the way, if you see an X, if this plot looks like an X, you're in a whole heap of world of hurt, because that X means it's just the opposite of what this shows you. It means you've generated a whole bunch of lateral force without that much steering input, and so the steering input slaps over to here, and that typically shows you that you've got understeer going on, or I'm sorry, oversteer going on, and you're correcting for it by turning into the corner, etc. So that's kind of what this plot shows. Now the rest of this, the corner radius, and actually I would recommend, I don't do a very good job of explaining it, but it basically, this corner radius is the instantaneous corner radius that the car is seeing as generated by the lateral G going through the corner. And basically what you're looking to see here is this corner here. I think I'm missing the apex a bunch, or I think I'm actually way late apexing, and so I'm having to unwind the steering, and so it's probably sliding the car a little bit in through here. You're looking more for this kind of corner where it kind of, you turn in, you go through the whole thing, and then you ease out of it. This is what this is the left hand. Oh, this is without the boot, so this is the left-hander. I guess it's turn 11 before the right-hander going back onto the main straight at the Glen, and so this is kind of what you look for. This little spike in here, this little counter steer. Probably got into a little deeper than he expected. Came around just a touch, and he was able to catch it and all that. But that's typically what you're looking. That's more of what you're looking for there. Lateral G and such, you can go on with there. There's also some things that you look for driver smoothness, and that's one of the things, the steering speed, how quickly you're turning that wheel per second, and what's the velocity at which it's moving, so it's in degrees per second, and the fewer spikes you have in this, the better off you are. Because that means you're just being smooth. You're going into it slow, you load it up. So for example, coming down the straightaway here, smooth in, turns in, and then he goes back the other way to unwind it. It's nice and smooth, all of that. Here's a little bit, here's a spike here that's a little bit, that looks like it's just a quick correct on the thing. There are a couple of those, but you can see the smoother you are, the faster you're going to be. The other thing is, and that same things could be said for throttle. When you're looking at throttle, you're looking at your throttle application going through the gears, etc. But also when you're using the throttle to help steer you through the corners, like you would at the on the outer loop here, as you get towards the exit of it, how smooth you are on that throttle, it will give you a better idea of how smooth you're actually being, because what's the old saying? You got to go slow to go fast. Steady hands, steady feet. Easy throttle application, etc. So does that kind of give you guys a good idea of the steering page, or do we got questions?
I have a recommendation. With iRacing, I can go into the cockpit of somebody as I'm watching them in a session, and especially in team sessions, this is what I'm more attuned to, is I can go in and watch somebody from the cockpit, and I can hear when they let off the gas, when they get on. But unless I have a replay, and this goes for trying to, when somebody says, man, you're fast, what line are you running? And you tell them we're running the same line, but with throttle, with braking. Is there any way that could be instituted a better representation of where you're letting off the throttle, where you're picking up the throttle, how hard you are? It shows it in the percentages here and throttle speed, but it's more attuned to where on the track you're at. Now, this track here that I'm looking at is Phoenix, and of course it's kind of a squiggly, but it doesn't give that reference that I could get with the replay, where I can see where they're at on the track exactly, say at the second cone, and I look down and they're off the throttle and on the brake already. Is there any way that that something like that could be instituted to make up for iRacing not letting you see that of other people, even if you're in a team session?
I know that there is some interest in some request. There's been a number of requests, and maybe I just ought to add that and add it to the list of things we got to do. What is it? The VSTO and the BSTO lap files. I think those are the extension, and these are what your best lap and your best sectors that actually are responsible for the ghost replay. And, and including those perhaps is something. So when we upload a fast lap, we also upload the guys, those two files. So at least if you download his lap, so you have his data, you'll also get his ghost laps. So you can actually show that compared to what you're doing. I know that there's been a request for that.
This information, oh, I'm sorry. This information on the throttles, I'm just finding this when you went over the steering, and that's very good information. What I really would like to see is to be able to put that information visually to what the driver sees on the track. Basically, where are their marks, so that I can see where they're picking up the throttle, how much they're picking up the throttle. I can see how much they're picking up the throttle, how much they're off, but not where they're actually doing it, because the map is rudimentary.
Okay. Well, I think
speaking on what Dusty's saying, and Dusty, me and him's talked a lot, but if you go to the driver tab, and for a second, I want to show you what I was thinking about. Is if you could actually have this data live while you're on the track, and it be tracking you as you're going around, and even if you're going at a slow pace, but then have the reference lap 2 up there, and then you could say, you could drive your car around and say, all right, this guy's letting off the second cone at Phoenix and getting on the brake, at the third cone. I think that would be really cool if you could actually track it live instead of because then you could visually see it in iRacing, but then also be watching it on your screen too.
That would actually fit right into being able to see the data points of where they're letting off and see the visuals. Yeah, that would fit in almost perfectly. So, because it's the visual. Because I can go and say I'm letting off at the second cone in turn 3 at Phoenix, but yet really I'm still seeing the cones and I'm 10 feet before them, whereas this guy's going in and hitting the cones and saying, look, I'm still too tight. We're running the same setup. I thought this was the same line. It gives that visual representation and the data right in front of you.
So replay tracking with iAnalyze is probably a good way to say it, so that you could play a replay and have it show you the data. So you basically could do, what's the magic thing we do here? It's come on, computer.
Like a ghost?
Well, what I was thinking of is we have the ability to do this replay stuff, right? I mean, and it'll just go and it'll track and do this. But if we could actually link this in with a replay that you're playing back, and so this could be live on one screen. And just tracking and basically providing where you are on the racetrack. Maybe it doesn't update any data, it's just your data that you're looking at, but it's tracking his replay against what maybe it's grabbing his data at the same time out of that replay. That's something we could look at. That's a interesting idea. I know there's a bunch of code in there that says don't gather data during the replay because nobody wants that, but maybe I need to fix that.
Well, we do
replay if it was even live. I mean, and I'm going to poke around the track at 20 miles an hour. On the screen, you're only a centimeter off from the braking point, but this guy's killing you on lap times. But you're sitting there looking at it. Well, how much further in is he driving it to get to get that lap time? So if you could even just poke around at 20 miles an hour and have it going across the screen like you do when you're doing the replay there, or whatever you want to call that. I'm not sure what it's called, but where the cursor moves. But if you could do it live and say, all right, he's braking right there. So
sure. That would... Well, and that's a question for you. Does this give you enough information, or does this, and what we've got going on here? Let me change the colors.
Throttle-wise, I believe it does. The problem, not problem, but what I'm getting at is I need to see this data of exactly, and Ricky's hitting on this too, exactly when I'm letting off, and be able to see it visually, because at short tracks, 5 feet, 10 feet difference is a tenth, 2/10 a difference in track time sometimes. So I want to be able to see this data exactly where it lets off and be able to see it right on the track, what he's seeing visually. And you can get that if somebody sends you a replay of a lap they've done, but that's a pain in the butt.
Right. And so I ideally, one of the things I've been toying with, and I've been trying to find somebody that's better at DirectX technology stuff than I am, and which isn't
Can
hard.
I interject something real quick?
Oh, sure.
Would it be possible to add a scaler to the map, to the track maps? Because then, even if we couldn't necessarily get it in the sim at this moment, it would give that actual measurement that we're currently lacking.
I think it shows you that on the driver track, but even still, it doesn't. I believe it has the number of feet, I think, on the driver tab. But even that, you're still guessing at how many feet that really is in the sim world,
Right. Absolutely.
Okay.
Almost, if you could replace the track visual graph on the in the iAnalyze program with the actual replay. If there's some way you could put that replay in there, and then you could follow that track data as they're racing it.
Yeah, and in fact, that's where I was going. Is that one of the ideas that I had was, geez, wouldn't it be neat if that not only if you had this track map showing you all these things, but let's say instead of this kind of worthless window middle in the here, but if that was showing you a track replay.
That would be wonderful.
And so you could.
That's the.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. I mean, so you could actually, set it to say, hey, show me the reference lap replay, and then you can even stack them or something, do something interesting with them. But again, the whole idea being is that the problem is the screen capture stuff is a bit of a nightmare, and I'm not, and this is actually one of my limitations, is that I was actually looking for a DirectX guy to help me with that, and I just haven't found somebody that I can reasonably afford to pay to do it. I mean, because they're asking for $10,000 to $15,000 to do it. I'd love to do it, but I'm not selling that many, So
I will tell you this, Doug. If you could implement that just on the sales end, there would be, could imagine that would be a big seller, because then guys could actually take those replays and put them in and see the data, and beginners, the 1,000 IR guy, the 1,500 IR guy who's thinking, gosh, I'm breaking at the same point as he is. Well, they go in and they see that actual visual to the data, and it's 10 feet further or 20 feet further or whatever. I think that would help the sales also.
Sure, and yeah, I'll keep looking at it. I mean, and in fact, I mean that's actually a yeah, I'll just leave it like that.
Right now, I'm looking at it with the team, the guys that are the low IR guys and trying to get better on our team. We were struggling with that just last night. I was trying to tell him, no, you're 10 feet too far, and he's saying, no, I'm not 10 feet. I'm doing everything you are. But if I could show him this way, he doesn't even own iAnalyze, but you would sell it to him because he could see exactly what I'm talking about.
Sure. I mean, and quite frankly, I mean, like the steering page, there's a bunch of guys that oversteer, especially on ovals. They'll go in and they'll put 30 degrees too much corner in, or too much steering in, and they don't know it, and they can't figure out, why am I 3/10 slower than these guys? Well, geez, because you're scrubbing speed and killing your tires, buddy. That's why.
Right.
And so. No, understood. Yeah, I'll see if I can find other ways of doing that. I know that there are a couple of screen capture programs that do have APIs, but they tend to, again, cost money. And the other thing I'm always worried about is the data side of things, how big things are. But I tell you, if you guys think it'll be worth it, I'll start looking into it. It may take a little bit, but we can work on moving towards that for you all.
Cool.
Yeah. So
I can tell you, as one of those sub 2,000 guys, it would be very helpful.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Point somebody made in the chat there, Doug, and I apologize if I'm not able to articulate this the way they are, but if we were able to have a reference lap running while you're doing a lap in practice or whatever, and when the reference lap correlates to where the reference lap lifted off the throttle or pushed the brake in, there would be an audio cue synced up with where you are on the track in your practice session.
Like your speed limit warning in the pits.
That's right. Something similar.
Yeah.
That would save you from having to integrate video.
And just the audio. Yeah, because I know that there's one or two other programs out there that will let you put markers on the track, and it will say, you know, break, 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 or whatever, or say break in 5, 4, 3, you know, and do a countdown or something. And and I always thought that was, you know, and this is my opinion only, and it could be wrong, but I always thought that was a little hokum. The reference lap idea, I really like. Now, how would you guys expect something like that to work? Would you like to have just a high pitched tone to say deet 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 to get on the throttle, or in a low tone to, you know, to say, hey, get on the brake, or would you actually want it speaking?
I would rather hear the tone myself.
I second that. I think good tone is...
Two tones, one for the throttle and one for the brake, probably.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And just higher frequency or lower frequency to give you an idea, to do it harder, to, you know, just get on it harder, or you know, so if it's brake really hard, you know, do a lower frequency.
Well, are you talking a beep, or are you talking a constant sound that goes with the pressure of the brake or the accelerator?
Well, I was thinking of when you're getting into the braking zone, is that once you get into it, you get into the braking zone, you get a, you know, it starts off at a steady tone, and then the further you get into it, you know, it gets, if you're supposed to brake, it gets lower and lower because you're not getting on it fast, you're not slowing down fast enough. The differential between the reference lap and the what you're doing right then isn't there, is greater, or something along like scaling it that way.
The way I'm seeing it,
go ahead.
The way I'm seeing what you guys are talking about is kind of like how the VSI on a glider works. You know, the faster you climb, the higher the pitch, and then you start descending, and it starts becoming a lower pitch, and then the faster you descend, the higher the pitch, or the lower the pitch goes, or something like that.
Right. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking, and I just have to figure out how to make that happen. But yeah, that seems an interesting idea. I'm sorry?
I'm sorry, Doug. I was just going to interject here. Is that one of the other products that's you know, shareware that I know a lot of the folks on iRacing use. You brought it up to, you know, being able to put sign kind of markers along the way, and that one allows you to put in noise, so you can say brake and, you know, accelerate, whatever you want to put in there. But that one takes a lot of work, because you got to go through a whole track and put in whatever you want for you know, mile markers, or what you want, the brake marker. But I've seen that on that one. But either a beep, or, you know, if we way of having it say brake or, you know, accelerate, that would be great.
Okay. Yeah, and then maybe we could find a way to work both methodologies in and give you options, because that's, you know, actually with the new architecture of the audio support that we've done in this last go-round, that it's a lot easier to do some things, and because we're pre-caching many of the phrases that are spoken back to you, it would be easier to trigger those. So there's something we can do there. And let's see. There's a question here, Christian. What is it about? The steering input change with relation to what stereo selection in the car? Trying to look at the wheel angle versus the steering wheel angle. Is that what the question's regarding, Christian?
The question is basically saying that does the software, when it shows the steering angle with the reference lap and your lap, does it make an allowance for if someone has got a different steering ratio selected in the car? for example, if someone runs like an 8-to-1 versus a 12 or a 14-to-1, is there something that picks that up?
Well, and the answer is yeah, because that steering ratio essentially will affect the wheel angle, right? Which is, what is the actual wheel angle off a dead ahead from zero versus what the steering wheel angle is. I mean, if you have let's see, if you have a lower ratio, it'll track more. You'll get more angle in the wheel than if you have a higher ratio, right? So it takes more steering wheel angle to get more steering wheel movement to get the same motion on the wheel. And the answer is, no, it doesn't, but it should track it in the setup. I mean, if we look at the setup report here, hey, we don't have any data in the setup report for this data, but it should track that there. And maybe that's a thing to add here is just if there's a steering ratio that's applied, just to put it down here, so it'll at least be noted of what the difference of the steering ratios are, so that you're comparing apples to apples, and that's a really good point. So,
Kyle, did you have a question? From Kyle S., I think it was.
Yeah, hold on for a second. Yeah, guys, this has been really helpful. I mean, and this kind of stuff I just love because I think it's kind of really neat. And I know that let's see, we've been at it here for a little over an hour already, and I know some folks had wanted to ask questions and get control and be a presenter for a little bit to ask questions of what's going on. And let's see if we can. So I guess Alex was one. Alex, are you ready to present your question or problem? Well, it sounds like Alex, are you there?
Yeah, Doug, I am here.
Okay. Okay, so let me find you and make you presenter then. How's that?
Oh, I'm more than happy just to talk.
Okay.
But in my case, it's as I'm kind of just a neophyte at iAnalyze over the last couple of weeks, and I'm trying to work my way through the tabs. And some of the tabs, like the driver's best and others best buttons, at least for me on the data source tab, are not clickable. Like I see there that they're not clickable for you either.
Yep, and I'll take a look at that. It shouldn't be the case, and that I'm probably screwing up a data path or something so that it's goofing up. Yeah, because the way the way they're supposed to work is that it keeps track of the fastest laps you've done that it's seen. Okay, and it has to see them, but if iAnalyze isn't running, it doesn't count. And same things with the other driver's best. And if you click that, it should automatically jump and load that lap. So yeah, no, I know I need to fix that.
I'm just working my way through the videos.
Yeah, and I really appreciate that.
What you do, I have a concern.
Yep. No, and I appreciate it. Because I mean, you've got me and Brady, and that's about the whole iAnalyze racing team, and that makes things a little interesting to say the least. Sometimes when we're testing and other stuff, and guys like Ricky Thompson and and Gary Corbett, they help quite a bit in terms of helping and have found more bugs than you guys will ever even want to know about. Ricky's always been really awesome about telling me what's going on and helping me find and isolate them. So anyway,
really quick, can you guys hear me?
Oh, go ahead.
Can you guys actually hear me? Yay! Finally, I hate when I have mic issues. No, it was in reference to the replay tracking. If I can go ahead and bring it up, I don't want to step on anyone's toes. I just want to make sure you guys can actually hear me.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I just want to go ahead and give people a reminder because I don't know if they really know about it. The replay tracking, it is a great idea. There, somebody else had pointed out there are some other programs that do implement that in a way. The one huge limitation, though, that you have to remember is while it would be absolutely great to be able to see what other drivers are doing, you still have to actually have their inputs to actually be able to tell, because you can't just tell from a replay when they're getting on the brake. Sometimes they could be jabbing the brake, sometimes they could be trailing the brake. The replay, you're going to see the car, shift momentum, or slowly, gradually slow down, in whatever which way, but you're not going to know what their actual inputs are unless they allow it to. The thing, and with that is they have to be able. Not only do they have to be able to allow you the telemetry, but it also has to be broadcasted on the server that iRacing is allowing everybody else to see their telemetry. And that's the thing that you have to remember. Now, while this is a great idea, you're not going to be able to do anything live until the session's actually over, or at least that run is over, so that way you can take the telemetry, be able to save it, forward it, and then the person open it. Even if you guys are in the same session and you're like, okay, well here's my telemetry, you're still not going to be able to do that unless you have a faster way of being able to do it. Now, like what it's being shown, the online browsing tool, that that is a quick way to go ahead and do that, but it still has to be uploaded, but you have to be out of the car to do that. You cannot do that at all in any shape, way, or form as a live deal unless you're in the car as a spotter. As a spotter, you can see some inputs, but you can't get the full telemetry of that.
Right, and that's just the limit of the telemetry system of iRacing, and rightfully so. I mean, and they only have so much bandwidth to translate stuff. But I think the idea is that if, hey, go grab the fastest reference lap you have, okay, or can find, and use that reference lap. If you download that and you have it already up in iAnalyze, okay, when you're running on the racetrack, it can be doing the math and figuring things out, comparing to that reference lap. So when you get to the right spot on the racetrack where the fast lap is braking and you haven't broke yet, you get a really loud low beep that says, "Hey, slow down, guys." And then if the further you get in, the further you get past the breaking point, the louder that beep is, or the lower that it is to give you a sense of urgency. And with the throttle, the same thing. Whether you're you'll have a reasonably nice, pleasant tone, and that tone would get louder, or not louder, but higher, or the pitch would get higher as you get into, hey, you got to stomp on it. Instead of just being a nice feathering, and no, this guy stomped on it, so you stomp on it, and it will give you that beep. It would take a little bit to train yourself to get used to it, but once you did, I'm willing to bet that you could learn the tracks a lot faster just because of that. I think that, guys, this whole session right now, just for that idea alone, is awesome, and that's something I'm going to be moving to the top of the list. I think that has a lot of potential, and a lot better than having you go through and put your little markers on the track and this and that. I mean, because quite frankly, I mean, we've got the map editor here. How many of you have ever been in it and laid out markers, or even know that you could?
I have no idea.
Yeah, you can come in here. You can say, okay, let's select a segment marker, and we want to show the maximum speed, and we're going to use the speed signal, and we want to give it in turn 1. Okay, and it will add it, and it will show you the speed maximum. So when you come to the track page now, come on, track page. Yeah, this is the joy of running in the debug version. You can see you've got you've got the track speed, so you can actually see where your maximum speed through that corner is. By the way, this is really awesome for oval stuff, so you can do your entry and exit speeds plus your mid-corner speeds to show where it actually gets to the speed minimum. It actually gives you really, really good data just for the oval stuff, and you can lay out all sorts of different markers and all of that. But even just doing that, it takes a lot of time. And so I really love the idea of just being able to take this reference lap and say, hey, this is where you brake, and you just wait for the tones to teach you the racetrack and how you do things. And I think that would be a really good idea, and I think it would give you a good live feedback. And eventually you're going to get to a lap, or you're going to want to start changing things on your own past what you have. So,
and if I may, Doug, as it is now, in order to see those inputs and things, somebody has to send you a multi-gigabyte size replay from iRacing, which is fine, but then you have to worry about the size of this. This way, they can create a reference lap in iAnalyze and say, sure, and there's guys out there that do that, the 5,000, 6,000 IR guys that will do that. If all you have to do is ask them. But this way they say, yeah, I've got iAnalyze, and I've got a reference, and they can send it over in how many kilobytes, or maybe a megabyte or so.
Yeah, they're usually 200-300. Yeah, two, 300 kilometers.
It's way easier, and plus it tells that guy, shoot, iAnalyze, huh? I might want to go get that.
Okay. Yeah. No. Hey. No. Good idea. Good idea, guys. I bet you guys deserve all the credit for that one. That is awesome. I like it. It may take me a bit to figure out how to do it effectively because there's going to be some concerns about network lag and what you're actually looking at and not wanting to, how much compute time you're going to want to spend on things. But yeah, we're going to do that. So awesome, guys. Really, really love that idea. And Brian, you asked a question about the colors. The answer is no. There's no default way to do it. You got to do it by hand, and if you can ever get the programmer to get his act together, he'll actually send a default file with that actually done already for you. I just haven't gotten to it yet, so I'm going to add that to the list. Yeah, and what Brian was asking, his question was, one of the suggestions that I have when you're analyzing data is if you notice you have all these little bars all over the place that pop up and will show you different things. But what we want to look at is or what they show is they have the colors for things here. And one thing that I like to do is that for data laps, let's say for the throttle, I want those both to be green. But for data laps, I'll make that a light shade of green, and for the reference lap, I'll make it a dark shade of green so that when I'm looking at the graph, I know which trace I'm looking at, and I don't have to think about it because I've just trained myself to think that way. And if you do it for every signal, it just becomes second nature, and it really helps you identify. Because looking at all these squiggling lines, it gets confusing. I mean, that's one of the hard things about data acquisition. It's one of the things that makes it. It's not the most user-friendly way of looking at the world, but in many ways there's no other way to really relate the data. I mean, the track map with the signals on it is probably the single biggest difference that I think we offer in terms of things as far as usefulness with that. But even there, what side of the track is what? What am I looking at here? And how do you define that effectively? So yeah, so that's a little trick with that. And let's see, you can do fun things. I think if you turn on the reference car, you could actually get the reference speed, by the way, on the markers. That was what I wanted to show there. So yeah, so there's that. Okay. Let's see. Any other questions, guys? Let's see. I'm trying to look through the.
One thing I would.
Go ahead. I would just, Doug, when you were showing that if you go back to the actual data, the line graphs, there's over on the right-hand side of each one of those, there's those little up and down arrows and tabs. And what's the best way? How do those work? I've clicked on them, but I sometimes wonder if there's some logic as to what's the best thing to do when I'm looking at it.
Well,
a lot of the stuff
yeah, it depends on what. Yeah, it depends on what you want to look at. The whole idea is that this just gives you a way to quickly order the graphs, in the way that you want to look at them. Like, let's say you wanted the speed and the steering wheel right next to each other, or maybe you wanted the steering wheel on top, so you go to the steering wheel version and you click the up arrow. It just moves it up a slot. The other thing that you might do is that you may not want the steering wheel one, so you could drop that down into the tab, and then if you drop the throttle down to a tab, now you've got the three of them, just speed, throttle, and brake, so you can look at them. It's just another way to give you to just organize the data the way you want to look at it. There were some folks wanted to have a better separation in the way that we had done things from prior versions, and I thought this version, this was a better implementation of giving you guys a quick way to look at that data. So that's what those buttons are for. They're just so you can rotate the data around and put it into an order that you want.
Thanks, Doug. That brief explanation makes it so much clearer for me, because I was fooling around trying to figure out what the tabbing did, and I didn't realize what it was doing is creating a tab at the bottom, so end user error.
Yeah, well, no, and we do have help, but we've got to get this rewritten because it's got to get caught up to everything that we've added over the last year and a half. I mean, and we wrote this a year ago, or a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, and things have changed, and there's been a number of changes. Just for example, in the voice commands. In some of the syntaxes that are available for those that I don't know if I've even ever made public, some of the changes that you have that you can actually do tire pressure commands as part of your pit stops. So you can say things like right front tire set pressure, right front tire pressure to add to psi. Or something along those lines. I don't remember what the syntax is off the top of my head. And that's another thing to show you guys. In this directory, in the iAnalyze racing directory, there's this grammars.htm file. If you open that up, this actually shows you, yes, use Google Chrome. Thank you, Microsoft. This actually shows you the grammar of everything that you could possibly say. And the way that you read it is when it says pounds, that's defining a rule. Okay, so the top rule, the rule that starts everything, says, okay, well, this top rule means you can say something from here, from these Windows keys or the information keys, the navigation keys, or an info command or a pit command, tire pressure commands. So, and then you can go down and we can say, let's look for the tire pressure commands because we were talking about them. So you can say, so the tire pressure command, you could say set right front tire, because if we go to individual tire, it'll say right front whatever. Set right front tire or tire pressure to 1.2 kilopascals, pounds per square inch, or just pounds or psi. Or you can use bar as well for those of you in Canada and Europe. So this kind of defines all of the things, and you'll notice it's not implemented for all of the languages. Sometimes things are only in English because I actually don't speak all these languages, and I have to get my interpreters and translators and stuff to go back through and do it, and I just haven't had the time to go back through and do that yet. But it does give you all of the different things you can say in terms of this. Now, I will tell you that I am looking at using natural language processing so that you could say it in any fashion you want and have it try to figure it out. So you don't need these grammars because it's a little cumbersome to learn the grammar. Just like anything else, it's kind of forcing you to say things a particular way. But I am looking at natural language processing as well. That was another question for you guys. What would you think if you had a tool that could look at all of your setups, the lap times the laps did, and kind of kick back if you make a change to it, kind of kick back or kick back recommended settings that might make things faster? Would that be useful? I'm assuming it would be. In some regards, yeah. In some regards, yes. I mean, I'm starting to get into machine learning a little bit, and I'm kind of thinking that might be my next toy or my next thing that I would like to do. And I was, wondering, gauging the interest. I mean, there's so much stuff that could go wrong with it. That's the biggest problem with it, is that there's, you could make recommendations based on what folks said, but unless you got into a serious design of experiments, layout, this is how you have to do your test for me to give you really good recommendations. I was, you can get spun out on other on the technology pretty quickly.
I'll add, Doug. That's probably one of the things I hear most is, a lot of guys aren't go and practice for an hour a week. They just get into a race, and iAnalyze isn't a whole lot of use to them because they race twice a week. So I know that's something I get a lot from people as a suggestion is this some sort of feedback on changes they're making or that the software can recommend. I think that would appeal a lot to a more casual user.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, maybe we just have to figure out some way to do that. Okay.
Aaron had a good question too there, Doug, if I can sneak in here.
Sure, yep, please do. Yes, no, you're doing an awesome job.
He says, I run in a series that runs several different classes of cars as one class. He would like a way to select a single class of car to collect data from regarding lap time, so he doesn't have to deal with the faster cars in the data source. So like a way to, if you're running, this is a weird example, but sprint cars and trucks in the same session, filter out all the sprint cars. I don't want to see that stuff. I just want to see how I'm doing compared to other trucks in the session.
Okay, and actually I can think of a way to do that. Would if we had an option here, probably, now, would you want to not collect that data?
Right.
Okay, so not collect the data, but just so if it's not in your car, don't collect the data.
Well, I run in the Pacific Majors, but you run a Predator type race where certain cars will start the race from the pits several minutes later than a different class of cars, but they'll all finish at the same rate. So like the GT3 cars will take the grid, and let's say I'm starting a GT1 car, I'll start it from the pits and leave 4 minutes later, and then the HPDs will leave about 10 minutes later after that, but I don't want to see the HPD lap times or anything like that.
Sure, and so yeah. Now, but I guess the question is, do you want to collect the data so you could look at it, or do you just want to have it not collected? Period. So that it
I just want to collect the data from the car, and maybe so like if I was running the Corvette and the Aston Martin was also there, I'd also like to collect the data from the Aston Martin.
So based on class of car.
Right.
Okay, cool. Let's see. All right. Well, guys, we're getting pretty long here. I mean, I'm more than happy to stay and answer questions, but, do you have more?
I'd like to see some feedback added into it, like the voice feedback, like, I'm running out of fuel, or your temperatures are getting hot, and things like that. I don't know what all we'd like to have, but maybe if you can tell fairly early in a race that you're not going to be able to finish on fuel, let them know when their last pit stop might need to be or something like that. Sky's the limit, you can come up with whatever. But
stuff like that appeals to the newer user also, because some guys put their view so far forward that they can't see their gauges, and all of a sudden they blow up and they're thinking, well, what the heck just happened? Or they don't know how to use their F keys. You tell a guy, hey, why'd you come on the track? Why don't you use your relative? Oh, what's that? That
Sure.
way, yeah, I think that's a good idea. And again, that goes toward the not lower end user, but you get what I'm saying, which would help sales.
Yep.
I think that's
you for calling me a lower end user there.
Ricky, you're my favorite lower end user, daggone it.
Just because I ran out of gas at Michigan the other night, does not mean I'm a lower end.
Now I know why you want it. Okay.
adding on to that, Doug, I think to kind of add to appealing to a casual user, those kind of things, a more casual user opens up the program for the first time and he sees results from those kind of features right away. The first race you run with iAnalyze, you can see this improvements in that way, that it's giving you fuel feedback and it's giving you voice feedback, and it's kind of that instant gratification with the software, and it gives you the desire to dig into the software more for features like that.
Sure.
A lower entry for a more casual user.
Yep, awesome
Ricky
ideas.
Thompson type of user.
Yep. Also along those lines, is I'd like to have more ability to create my own voice commands. I know you have that ability, but I think you're limited to one keystroke right now.
Right.
I'd like to be able to say, if I wanted to put up a chat message or something, then I could say it to iAnalyze, which I use voice attack too. So I got both of them going. I got two buttons bound to each different one, but I'd like to get rid of one. So.
Sure. No, understood. Yeah, if you, Ricky, if you want to come up with a list of voice commands you'd like to see added that would help you do that, I'd appreciate it.
Okay.
That would be.
Leave the cuss words out, Ricky.
Yeah.
God, you guys are relentless. Yeah, no, but if you can come up with those, let me know. I'd appreciate it because I could make changes to the English stuff pretty quickly. It's not too terribly difficult, so we could get those added in right away. We've had a number of, we have the ability to take dictation, so you can do a chat message and actually speak it exactly what you want it to be. And just like you're talking into Siri and an iPhone or something, like sending a text message that way, we can do that. So
I'm from the South. It'll never work here. Sorry.
It'll just say y'all every fifth word. It's okay. But yeah. But we can make that happen. So yeah, and that would, I think, probably give you better things. And then I think also allow multiple keystrokes. That's the next thing that I have to do. So. Okay, guys, you have any other questions? Or
yeah, I was gonna. Can you hear me? There we go. It's taken a moment for it to register. The thing about the tires, the aesthetic idea that I had earlier.
Yep.
Because I know the current format you've got. If you want to go ahead and pull it up so people can see what I'm talking about. I'm just waiting on my screen here. All right, it's like current format you got. You've got the left front up top, you got the right front underneath there, the left rear, then the right rear. I've gotten used to being able to differentiate things like this just because I'm used to multiple forms of data. But I know not everybody is able to easily recognize what it is as far as what they're looking at. So something this is something I've actually thought about for some time, and I think I actually did bring it up the last meeting that we had. We just never talked more about it because we always tell each other we'll get in touch with each other, and then we never do. I don't know if it's just like a common theme between you and I. Oh, we'll talk. 3 months later at the next meeting. Oh, we'll talk. Anyways, back to the point. Instead of just having the heat over distance plot like what you've got now and everything stacked there, changing it in a format so that way it's more of a grid type look that still has that distance plot. So like top left corner, that would be the left front. Next to that would be the kind of like how you have the dampers
or
the page.
Okay.
Yeah, it'd be like that. So you have each you've got a specific plot for that corner of the car, and then arrange it, have it arranged in a way that you can physically see what's going on. So like so I'm going to use the left front for example. You've got that block. You've got the outer on the left side. You have the middle on the obviously in the middle, and then you have the inner on the right side of that graph. Then you move over to the right front. You've got the inner on the left side, middle in the middle, and then the outer on the right side of that. So that way, when you look at this from as you would a car from top down, the tires where they're at match where they are. So like when oval guys, and they can see this, and they look and see what the tires are doing when you're going through the corners. And obviously the outsides of the right front's going to get hotter, as well as the inside from the left front because the car is shifting on the momentum that way. And then with the road guys, it's the same. It'll end up being the same thing. When they're going through different corners, some of the corners obviously have a larger radius, some are shorter. They can still actually be able to identify what the car is doing when it does shift its momentum, whether it's a small shift or rapid shift, whatever. And they can spot that looking at the car as if it was actually on track, rather than having this line set up. Like if I want to try and compare the left front and the left rear, now I've currently got 2 blocks I have to look at, and one in the center that's still going to have a visual distraction to me.
Sure. What if we were to take this, rotate it 90 degrees, and then have it organized so it'd be left front, left rear on the inside, right rear on the inside, right front on the outside, and have the graphs running vertically instead of horizontally?
I think having the graphs vertically. I mean, I don't see too much of an issue with that. I mean, I think that would work. It's just I think it's just a matter of actually having them separated so that way you can identify each corner. Because like I said, right now,
Right.
with the format is you've got the fronts up top, which is awesome, because obviously that is the front of the car. But if you want to compare what the right front and the right rear are doing in conjunction with each other, because that is a huge thing in oval racing, having because those two tires take the most abuse, period. Even if it doesn't always show it, what they're doing in conjunction with each other is a huge thing. But in order to do that, how it's right now, you have to completely ignore the left rear, which with the one you've got right now, you're looking at the second half of the lap, and you got a bunch of green. That's a lot of green you have to filter out in order to try and compare this. Just the right front and the right rear.
Okay.
So.
Well, and the other thing we
How
can
about
do
the
is just
ability
go ahead.
get rid of what? How about the ability to just customize that view so that if you want to pull up the left front and your right front, you click on left front, right front, and it pulls it up. Or if you want to see all four, you click on all four and it shows it.
Yeah, because
right.
Yeah, I mean, right now we just give you the only options we give you. Oh, we can do a vertical chart. When did I put that in there? Does anybody know when I did that?
Yesterday.
Yesterday, probably, because this is a development version. Okay, yeah. Okay, so if we, it doesn't work. That's why. Okay, I got it. That was the original idea, I think. But yeah, no. We could make it so that this is customizable like the driver page, and we can even add the ability to hide hold tires, so you can only look at the two that you're interested in.
Hey Doug, go to the sandbox for a minute and pull up that tire temp plot and see if that's kind of what they're talking about or not. Maybe not. I don't know. It's hard to talk about it over the...
No, just wait.
Yeah, let's see.
It's called tire temp, but I don't know what it's...
I'm looking for the...
Just look for the right, yeah.
Tire temp plot, this one here, or mine?
Yeah. Yours, I think. I think they're the same, but anyway.
Okay.
I could have a biased opinion here, but I kind of like the way that Motec does it to where they do it in a line form. Yeah, like this graph here shows. I like that there.
Okay, and
yeah, that's kind of what I like too.
Yeah, you see this one here, I don't think you could do this way because the amount of horizontal space you have to relay that information isn't. There's the color transitions can be very subtle and very slow as they happen. And if you smush this down too much, I think you lose some of the resolution that you're looking at. And maybe that's okay if we were to do it like that. I don't know. Let me come up with a couple of different things, and what I'll do is I'll just come up with a couple of different ideas, post a couple of bitmaps up on the news or in the forums or what have you, and you guys can tell me, that's good or bad.
Yeah, I just like to see where I'm burning the tire up, and that kind of gives me the sharp spike in the corners, and I can,
sure,
as I'm working on the setup, I can see if I'm bringing it down or not.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of thought that this was a pretty reasonable plot, and just because it just lays everything out the way you'd expect to, or at least I would expect to, the way I'd like to look at it. Yeah. So okay, but yeah, no, but I'll give it some more thought and see what we're doing to make that all happen appropriately. Okay. Well, we're getting on here, almost on 2 hours, so I think we ought to wrap things up, if that's all right with everybody. I know, Alan, you had mentioned that you had a couple of issues you want to talk to me about. Can we talk later tonight or tomorrow?
Sure, by your time. My time is it's 9:50 a.m. here. I'm in Australia, so any time suits me.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll tell you what. Why don't we stay on as soon as we wrap this up here, and we can talk a little bit about what you've got going on. Does anybody have anything else? Or
I got one simple one. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, just again, thanks Doug for doing this and being a part of Sox Out Racing. It's a real honor to have you guys on board.
Oh, thank you, Stephen. I mean, really, it's you trust me. You're doing us more of a favor because you're doing an awesome job. So thank you. But,
now
okay.
I got a quick question. Good. I'm sorry.
I was late in here. Is this going to be put on your YouTube channel?
Yes, we're recording it, and so we're going to do that. And this is great, guys. I got to tell you guys, this has been the best meeting we have had out of the 5 or 6 that we've done. I mean, you guys were awesome today. You guys have more great suggestions and more interesting ideas today and I really appreciate it. And I think for all of you that stuck around, and I know it can get a little boring and stuff going through this stuff and walking me through things, but I really appreciate it because you guys have really come across with ideas that I think will make things better, and I really appreciate that. And certainly hats off to Brady, who's done a wonderful job of getting the word out, making sure things had happened. So thank you for that, Brady.
Doug, I got one real quick question that you can probably answer. On several of these tabs, from data source all the way to fuel reports, there's a map, and it looks like a kindergartner sketched it. Is that the actual path that you took around the track, or is that just a kind of a rough graphic representation of the track so that you could fit it into the little
No,
box?
that is the path you took around the racetrack. It's a 2D.
Is there any way that you can, in a transparent way, put the actual track on it so that you can see? Because that until you answer that, I had no idea. So that you could choose to put the track transparently in the back as it's actually represented, so you could actually see the path that you're taking around the track.
The answer is yes, but okay. Believe it or not, iRacing, actually the track path that you're actually on, you actually use honest to gosh GPS coordinates for it. Okay. The problem is that the GPS coordinates aren't necessarily the same as what you would find in, say, Google Earth. Okay.
Right.
And so, or Google Maps or what have you. And so the way that I would do something like that is that I don't have we don't get the data from the actual track data or how to read it from iRacing. We don't get that. All we get is the data from the race car. So to do something like you want, what we'd have to do is we'd have to scale the bitmaps so that, or just go to Google Earth or Google Maps, whatever, and say, okay, give me this area. These are the coordinates that I'm interested in, and try to map that and then overlay on it, but it won't always overlay properly. And any differences between the tracks or GPS coordinate shifts because they had a local station set up, which is I think one of the things that they do, and there can be a little bit differences with that. You can get a little different answers just because of that.
Okay. Because there could be things like avoiding a bump, you're passing, and you're trying to figure out, well, why does my line bubble out, bubble in? Why am I going way wide on the corner and then coming back in? Did I have to pass somebody? And having that ability to see that on a reference lap or any kind of lap that you're recording for data, it would be nice to be able to see that.
Yeah, Chris Halliday had done some work on this, and he's another guy he wrote the original help and hopefully going to do the help system again. I have to go over that. He's done a little bit of work on that, and the problem is just getting stuff to align properly. Now, I suppose I could go through and get somebody to drive around the outside of the racetrack, the inside of the racetrack, take those laps, and then use that, and then just use that as the racetrack that we're going to compare on. And perhaps that might be another way to do it, just thinking out loud. If somebody were to go around every single racetrack.
I'll volunteer to do that, yeah.
Yeah, and then go.
I'll volunteer to do that.
Yeah, because and that because then I could take those laps and we could pull that data and then pull that in for the track and store that up on the server. So when you go to a racetrack, it pulls down for the track and the configuration you're at. It pulls down the data, caches it locally on your machine, so you don't have to do that again. But then once it has it, it can draw the outline of where the actual track is as part of the track path.
Yeah. That would be wonderful. That way, like I said, you could tell what caused you to take that line that you were, because I didn't even know that was your actual track. I thought it was just a limitation of the graphic program and because of the size of the box and so forth.
Well, yeah, there's some of that. I mean, you only have so much space, but again, like on the track map, you can zoom in, and it'll come in and it'll zoom in and show you just much bigger detailed view.
Right.
So
right.
So you can do that, and and having that kind of thing would be useful.
I think the problem you might run into is where is the GPS data based off the car? Is it based off the center of the car?
Good question. I don't know. I don't know. You'd have to ask iRacing.
You'd still have a whole, I mean, even if you took your idea and say, for example, an oval track, you had, you ran a lap on the outside and a lap on the inside, depending on where that GPS data is coming from in location of the car, you'd have to figure that out and how to offset that to get the actual edge of the track.
Right, yeah,
because if it's in the center of the car, there's 3 feet on the outside, and if you're on the inside, there's 3 feet to the inside part. I get what you're saying there.
Yeah, that's a good point, Dave, and that's actually a question I can ask the iRacing guys. I have a decent enough relationship with them that I'll say, hey guys, how does this all work? How could I accomplish this type of thing, or is that data you can give me? Because they might be able to just hand that data to me. They might have that in some file somewhere that they can just massage and send to me. So that's worth a question to them. So Tom, before you go running off to do that, we ought to wait to find out what's going on there. Yet again, another good idea, guys. Awesome. So
I had an opportunity to wait a number of years ago when the Indianapolis track was introduced, before the Indy cars were available. Had a chance to drive with an actual pro driver, and we were going out of the pits. He said, "You feel that bump right there?" He says, "At the track, that's actually there." So I mean, those scannings are phenomenal. I don't know if that's data that would be beneficial for that, Doug, or if that's just way too much data to.
Well, no, I mean, that's where they would get the data. I mean, that part of that data is, but all I really want is just the GPS coordinates of the track edges. That's all I'm really after. And yeah, there is tons of other data that's in there in terms of, track deviation, track. If you do, basically, I think what they're doing is LiDAR scans of the actual track. So you're actually getting the variations that you actually see and feel in the racetrack are actually being detected by LiDAR scan or laser scan or whatever they're doing. What's the other? There's another company. I can't remember the name of them. Oh shoot, they have X Factor. Those guys, they have X Factor Pro, and they actually do track scans that are of even, they're probably the highest fidelity or highest degree of stuff because they really go into detail. And, they take it to the nth degree, like down to a millimeter or something like that, as opposed to a couple of millimeters. So they get pretty crazy in a hurry. So. All right, guys. Hey, listen, thanks again for an awesome session. I've really enjoyed this, and I really appreciate y'all coming and stuff, and all your great ideas. And I'll get hard at work. I probably won't have a new version until the end of April. I've got some other software I've got to get done for my company. By the way, if any of you guys are racers and need a shock dyno, please talk to me. We've started a new company, Carolina Testworks, which you can find online, where we're building our own shock dynos now, and I'm doing the software for them as well. And so that's the big thing. So if you need a shock dyno, I'm the guy to call. And with that, I guess we'll call it a day. Alan, we'll just stick around here. Let me just get the recording stopped, and we'll address your problems. And you guys are welcome to stay and ask questions and stuff, but I think the official session, we'll call it to an end. Thank you.
Thank you very much.